Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of The Probe. And tonight we are having a discussion, of course, it's the Christmas Eve edition, and we are getting to talk about, of course, safeguarding Ghana's peace, spirituality, a glimpse into 2024. That's what really we are looking at. Tonight we have the opportunity to interact with the National Peace Council. We'll also interact with the Christian Council, at least 3 key institutions in this country and personalities in this country on how to safeguard Ghana's peace, test the pulse of our spirituality, look back on 2023, and then a glimpse into 2024. I have the chairman of the National Peace Council, Reverend Dr. Ernest Edujemfi. I have the president of the Trinity Theological Seminary, Ghana, Very Reverend Professor Johnson Kwabena Asamoah-Jedu. I also have the General Secretary, Christian Council of Ghana, Reverend Dr. Cyril Gershon Kwao Fayose. We are live on Joy News. We are on Joy 99.7 FM for our radio audience and affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. We're on myjoyonline.com and all our social media platforms. I am Emefa Apau, and this is The Probe. We'll get talking shortly. Please do stay with me. Welcome back to the Joy News channel, and we're also here is The Probe on Joy 99.7 FM. We're on myjoyonline.com and affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. The Christmas Eve edition, and we're taking a look at how to safeguard Ghana's peace, our spirituality, and a glimpse into 2024. Of course, we'll look back on 2023 as well. And the chairman of the National Peace Council, Reverend Dr. Ernest Edujemfi, joins me via Zoom. In the studios is the president, Trinity Theological Seminary, Ghana, Very Reverend Professor Johnson Kwabena Asamoah-Jedu. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Merry Christmas to you.
Many happy returns. Of course, we look into the year 2024 as well. We'll get talking shortly. I also have via Zoom General Secretary, Christian Council of Ghana, Reverend Dr. Cyril Gershon Kwao Fayose. You're welcome, gentlemen, joining us via Zoom. Please unmute and let's hear you. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure it must be a busy Sunday today. Maybe briefly, what have we been up to, you would say? Reverend Dr. Edujemfi, maybe we'll start with you.
All right. It's been quite a busy day. I had to preach in 2 services in the morning and also had a function in the afternoon. So this is about my 4th program for the day.
How about you, Dr. Fayose?
Same here. I did not do a preaching today, but I was in a couple of services and a meeting before this.
And Prof, what have you been up to today?
Well, I went to church. And I did preach. We had a service of 9 lessons and carols this morning. A very beautiful service. And I did give a homily.
Okay. Well, we will look forward to all that is going to happen within the season. But I don't know if you all participated in the district assembly elections. Of course, you had to. But did you?
I don't know what you mean by participation.
Did you vote?
I wasn't able to vote.
Okay.
But at least some of the people standing for election came to talk to me.
Okay.
I told them what I thought about the process, but I wasn't in the position to physically go and vote because something had taken me out of the jurisdiction.
Okay. But what did you, I'm sure you've been observing what happened. We've heard the ECs call themselves high marks, really. Last week we were talking about that district assembly elections and the apathy amongst others. But really the organization, from where you stand, I'm sure you've been monitoring. What would be your take on how it was organized, their concerns that has been raised?
Well, I think that in the first place, we must all be concerned about the apathy. It is not just in one location. It's almost like the whole country. And I think when you do something and it's not working, one of the best approaches to it would be to do an evaluation. We've got to ask ourselves, why are people not showing interest in the district assembly elections? This is an issue that has been discussed on various platforms, but it doesn't look like we are keen to take any action on it. So I think that would be my take on the matter, that we really have to do some introspection on that front. And if we have to change course, let's do that.
Dr. Edujemfi, I don't know about you. Prof says he wasn't able to vote out of the jurisdiction, but you'll be monitoring as well. I don't know if you voted and exactly what would be your thoughts on the organization of this particular district level and unit committee elections.
Well, unfortunately, I wasn't able to vote. First, because I did not hear of any of the candidates. And there were no posters in my locality. I had no idea who the candidates were. It was only one person who showed up in my house in my absence and wanted me to endorse him. And in my capacity, I cannot endorse anybody. And so I could not endorse that. And throughout the whole campaigning period, there was nothing in the area that signified something was happening. So I didn't know the candidates, I didn't know what they stood for. And so it was very difficult for me to vote, even though I observed all the things that were going on within the community.
Well, Dr. Fire said, does the Christian Council have a position on the just ended District Assembly and Unit Committee elections? They've been concerned about the removal or the abolition of the use of indelible ink, amongst others. Where does the Christian Council stand? Do you have a score, a mark for the organization of the just ended District Assembly and Unit Committee elections?
Thank you very much. The Christian Council of Ghana has no position at this point on the elections. Maybe we are going to discuss it as the time goes on. I was not able to vote as well. And I think it is a loud call for local governance reforms. And I am saddened by the fact that this government tried to do some reforms at some point, but then abandon it in midstream. I think it's something that we must really go back to and find a way to reform our local governance system. The way it is right now, it is not working. And the vote that we have just taken here on this show is a clear indication. I don't know if MFI, you voted yourself. It's a clear indication that
you guys are not alone. I didn't vote as well. I didn't vote.
It's a clear indication that we have to do some serious reforms. I think, in my view, we must involve the parties. The parties are already involved anyway. Let us bring the parties on board, and I think we'll get some more traction, and people will be more interested in trying to get their party person into position, even if they don't know the person. So we seriously have to go back to that reform that was started and get something done. Otherwise, the way things are, it's not working for us. About the indelible ink, I don't think the Christian Council of Ghana has a position on that as well. But in my own personal opinion, I do not think it's neither here nor there. If the experts say we can conduct elections without the use of indelible ink, why not? I mean, we are developing, technology is advancing. There are new ways of doing things. So if we can do it without the indelible ink, why not?
Well, Doc Edujemfi, you got to interact with the EC and other stakeholders just on the 14th of December. There's this issue about the use of indelible ink come up because some people in the rural areas have started raising concerns. At least in the villages, when you vote, that's the only way people get to know that actually you participated in an election. Even though the technology is in and we have to fade out the use of indelible ink from the explanation that the EC has given. But really, what was the proposal that was made or the pitch that was made to you and the other stakeholders as to why it had to be abolished? Did they come up at all?
Yes, the EC actually announced at that dialogue, we had a good representation of the political parties and their leaders there. In fact, the NDC in particular had the full representation. The other parties were also there. The EC made a clear statement that they were going to do away with the use of indelible ink because to them, once somebody is verified biometrically, there's no way that person can vote again. And so they thought that it was not wise for them to put a lot of money in importing this ink when we could actually do without it. There were a few comments from the parties that this is too early for them to comment because the district assembly election is not as competitive as the general elections. So I think they were all waiting to see how it was going to pan out during this election. And after that, we've had a few comments, and I'm sure that we'll all review all these things, and then maybe going forward, we'll see what advice we can give.
We need more deliberation on this. You have a take on this indelible ink issue. We've already had the NDC and some other CSOs raise concerns about the abolition. Some agree that, yeah, it's time to move on from this with the onset of technology, amongst others. I don't know if you have a view on that.
Well, I'm just hoping that if it is abolished, we wouldn't have the same parties complaining about rigging and so on. The question is, what is the reason? If the reason is economic, is the amount of money that goes into it so much that it sort of outweighs other considerations? If not, the indelible ink, I think, does two things. The first is it sort of certifies that somebody has voted. But don't let us forget that it also plays a public relations role. In other words, if I live in a community and there is indication that I've voted, it may inspire others to go and vote.
Yeah.
You know, so as long as there's consensus on whether to keep it or do away with it, that's fine. But my caution would be, we don't want a situation where we do away with it and then the same people who advocate for its abolishment then turn around to complain about overvoting, as we like to say in this country. That would be my position on
Okay. Well, Doc, I would want to stay on that dialogue on the 14th of December briefly, because this issue is something that will come up again, especially as we go into election 2024, the return of the NDC to IPAC. You made a pitch at that dialogue that the NDC should return. We'll be hearing from the EC also begging that the NDC returns. Did we conclude on the matter at this dialogue? Are they returning? Did they give a definite commitment about their return to IPAC?
Thank you very much. The NDC did. They actually said they will return based on our plea and on the olive branch that the EC chairperson had also extended to them. But they also gave a caveat that there were some concerns that they had, and they wished that those concerns would be addressed, especially the fact that they thought that IPAC was not having the consensus that they expected. And the response from the EC was that that was the first time they were hearing directly from the NDC what their concerns were, because they had earlier on heard other things. But when they heard that the major issue they had then was the issue of consensus, they actually made it public that this was the first time they were hearing this. So my hope is that these issues will be addressed to make it easy for them to stay in the IPAC. In fact, the chairperson of the EC said that she misses the fire of the NDC. And I think that sometimes all these things help. For us, we think that for the establishment of our democracy and the respect of our democracy will require that all the players should be participants in everything that happens. And that is what we advocate for.
Okay. Well, on elections, though, then we can wrap up from elections and go on to some other issues. A lot of issues on the table that we have to talk about. But 8 persons lost their lives in the last election 2020. I have the names, Samira Zakaria, all the way to Tajuddin Mohammed. We have Dompre Emmanuel. And this issue has lingered on for some time now. Reason why most people say that the likes of the Christian Council and the Peace Council have been awfully quiet. There's been loud silence on your part. These 8 persons still do not have justice. Dr. Fayose, is this an issue that is of concern to the Christian Council, for instance? Then the Peace Council can have their take and then we can talk about other issues.
Thank you very much. Yes. Anytime we lose a life when we are trying to exercise our democratic rights, I think it's a life too many that have been lost. So yes, the Christian Council of Ghana is definitely concerned. We have been working very hard behind the scenes before we go into elections to make sure that there's peace before, during, and after the elections. But somehow things go out of hand, and sometimes people lost their lives. But having said that, I think the issue is a very complex one. And it is not something that we should continue to come on air and make noise about. I think there are statutory bodies that have been mandated to handle such issues. The Ghana Police Service and other law enforcement agencies should look into the matter. It's lingered on for some time, and we are a bit concerned about that. But I think the matter must be looked into so that some of such things do not repeat themselves as we go forward.
But 3 years on, are we happy with the pace of work that's been done in terms of getting justice for these 8 persons?
No, we are not happy with the pace of work. We hope things would pan out a bit more faster than they have happened. Because if they don't, it gives the impression that justice is denied some groups of persons in our society. But I don't think that is the case. But as I said earlier on, it's a complex issue. It's not something that you just go in and immediately you get justice. So we believe that the law enforcement agencies are working on it. They should work a bit faster so that justice is served.
Prof, there's a talk that it's been 3 years, and those who have the voices to make the loudest call for justice to be given to these persons have not done enough. From where you sit, what should be the way forward? It's 3 years now, and these 8 persons, no justice. There's been petitions to Shraj. You've heard him. Law enforcement agencies are supposed to be investigating and doing the needful. 3 years on, nothing has happened.
Well, that's tragic for what we present as a democracy. These things shouldn't happen. But the question that confronts us is this the first time that people have lost their lives in elections? The answer is no. So we haven't done well in the past. And this is something that we have carried over to the present. No party can take a high moral ground on this matter. So the parties themselves must begin to realize that it is unacceptable for people to lose their lives during times of election. So whichever party is in power, we have people losing their lives. This is not just one party. When we limit it to the last election, then it will appear as if nothing has happened in the past. I don't think we should do that. So let's go back and look at all the mistakes we have made and all the people who have lost their lives and seek justice for all of them. That's what I would say. Okay. You don't have to limit it to one regime.
To one regime. Yeah. Okay. Doc, Edujemfi, really, in our quest for peace, there should be justice as well. And these 8 persons, at least the last election, is what we are talking about. Are we concerned that up until now, no justice has been served?
It's a major concern to us. After the last election in 2021, we had our first election review dialogue in Ada with all the key players in the election space. During that dialogue, we were all assigned certain responsibilities. And the last dialogue we had 2 weeks ago was to review some of the things that we were assigned to do. And the Peace Council came out to tell them exactly the things they asked us to do. We've had meetings with the Chief of Defense Staff. We had meetings with the IGP. We've met the immediate past Chief Justice, and all other institutions that we believe should have been involved in this matter. We have expressed our views. The challenge we have, and which we also made them aware at this last dialogue, is that sometimes the Peace Council is triangled into a situation where we are placed in a very uncomfortable situation as if we play the role of other agencies. The issue of criminality rests with the police, and we expect that the police will take that responsibility and execute it. But sometimes when these things are delayed, they come back and say, what does the Peace Council say? What the Peace Council said? Ours is to make our voice heard, and we tell the police, look at these things. If we don't look at them, we're going to have issues. We had another dialogue in Pram between just the political parties and the police to bridge the relationship gap between them. We had another one between civilians and the security services, all of them in Koforidua, again to bridge the relationship between civilians and security services. In all of these things, we've had a lot of discussion. So we expect that the security agencies will take up their responsibility and play their role, instead of the citizens coming back to Peace Council consistently and say, what is the Peace Council saying? When we have done everything that must be done.
Well, the issue about voices being heard, the concern really is that the National Peace Council, the Christian Council, for instance, at least the Peace Council is, of course, a constitutionally mandated body, I should say, but the Christian Council is not. But both voices were very loud, at least voices that people respect in society, amongst others. But that voice, people say, is no longer as loud as it used to be. You agree?
We've made our position clear on this matter. Now, we've had different administrations and different leadership. And this current board of the Peace Council has chosen the path of not using condemnation. And we've done that on purpose because we believe that we are mediators in issues. So once I condemn a party, it becomes difficult for that party to sit at the table for negotiation. And so for the last 3 years, we have refrained from going on that path. We've reviewed all the things we've done, but we thought that that was the best way to go. So the last 3 years, we've not come out to say we condemn this, we condemn that, we do that. We have just remained in the middle. And much as we don't agree with some of the things they do, when we meet with them in their political dialogue, we draw their attention to the fact that, look, we committed ourselves to do these things, you are flouting them, what do you say? And in most cases, they will come to our meetings and apologize that that is not the way we thought we'll go. This year, we've instituted this political dialogue between ourselves and the political party. We have 2 in the office of the Peace Council. We have this one in Pram Pram, and we had the 4th one, which was held in Mediation last week. So this continuous relationship has been between us and the political parties. But sometimes the unfortunate thing
But if you leave the public out of this, how will the public know that at least you are whipping those in authority in line, as we used to know was done in the past?
Well, 2 issues here. One is that, unfortunately, the party leadership are unable to communicate to their grassroots the things we are doing. And so the grassroots still feel that nothing is being done. Secondly, we need the support of the media. Because in all these dialogues, we've had the media. In fact, the last one we had in Mediation, the media sat through the whole process. But sometimes they come up with the first news, the first day, the second day, and then it dies. Whereas we could have picked up other issues that came up and gradually sensitize the public to understand the work of the Peace Council. And so there are times that we give our report in some of these fora, and people sit back and ask, oh, wow. So all these things are going on and we don't know.
Okay.
But in every given situation, we've had the media there, and we need your help to let the public know exactly what we're doing.
Dr. Fayose,
and I believe that a program like this helps.
Okay. Dr. Fayose, the Christian Council still has a voice? Or you've also adopted the backdoor approach?
I think I completely agree with Dr. Edujemfi that going out publicly to condemn one party or the other doesn't really solve the issue. It may make the public happy.
But when did we realize this? When did we realize this is the concern?
Well, the Christian Council of Ghana is not a monolithic organization. It keeps changing. So leadership has changed hands. Dr. Edujemfi used to be our chairman some time ago. He's no longer our chairman. He's not the chairman of the Peace Council. So things are changing. And new leadership with new styles come into play. And it is the best thinking now, the best practice as we think, that we should not go out into public condemning to start with. We must do the backdoor diplomacy, talk to the persons involved. And we have been doing that successfully. In fact, the e-levy crisis that came up, it's literally divided parliament down the line. And we spoke to different parties concerning that e-levy issue. And the e-levy rate was brought down. And then there was some semblance of peace, even in parliament. It is because a lot of diplomacy, shattered diplomacy that was done behind closed doors. So I think that this approach is yielding results, and we must do a bit more of that.
Okay. Prof, backdoor approach, it looks like that's what the Peace Council and the National Christian Council have adopted. That at this point, at least, there's been a lot of criticism of that approach in recent times. But really, from where you sit, is that a way to go? Leave the public out and do that backdoor diplomacy for peace to prevail?
Well, I see the wisdom in the position that the Peace Council and the Christian Council of Ghana have taken. There is some merit to that. But I think we also need to understand that sometimes public naming and shaming, especially when what is going wrong is very glaring, also helps. So I would say a combination of approaches. The problem we have, though, is that when people go step out of line and you condemn them, I mean, just go back and look at the sort of insults, the acerbic tongues that have been unleashed on pastoral leadership in this country, because particular religious leaders are not speaking the language that they want to hear. The Christian Council, the Peace Council are not there to be advocates of particular political party views. So that's what I find, that a lot of time those who complain are not neutral. So we are not hearing neutral voices. So even those of us in the media, those of you in the media, should be careful about who is saying what. Because people may be saying things from parochial interest positions. So my thinking would be, let's do a combination. Let's do the public naming and shaming of people who step offline, and then also avoid being too condemnatory so that we can move forward in those kinds of issues. Yes.
Okay, well, one big issue for this year, at least, that we've been talking about, at least, the speaker told us that it will be passed. I'm talking about the anti-gay bill. It was a proper human sexual family values bill, which was supposed to have been passed. At least you're smiling because you know that it will definitely come up. So it wasn't passed. And just in the midst of that, we're talking about it, Parliament arose, it didn't happen. Then we had a communication from the Pope to Catholic bishops and archbishops about blessing same-sex couples and not blessing the same-sex marriages. So maybe we'll box the two together and talk about it. Since you teach theology, you can explain to us what blessing same-sex couple is as against blessing same-sex marriage. Then we can talk about whether you're disappointed that the anti-gay bill was not passed before Parliament rules in spite of the assurance that was given.
Well, as for not passing the bill, I'm sure all of us Christian leaders are disappointed, and we are hoping that it won't be too long, because the LGBTQI plus issues goes against our religious faith in terms of belief. It goes against social and cultural norms and so on. So I think we are agreed that this is not something that we want to tolerate. I have a friend who is a scholar himself, a Western person, who came to my office to complain about why we are treating LGBTQ people that way. And I said to him that I have not heard one Christian leader preach hatred, being homophobic, as we say, against these people. What we don't want to tolerate is a lifestyle. If you make your choice, but don't expect the rest of us to endorse your private sexual choices. As for the Catholic Church, we have heard different tunes. The Pope initially talked about blessing in an informal context, but also in a liturgical context. The liturgical context, I think, is what they recognize, and I think they are against putting same-sex marriages in a liturgical context, because that will mean endorsement. But I think they also wanted to recognize that when you live in a community, sometimes issues can be taken out of your hands if you are supposed to offer a pastoral role or play a pastoral role or offer pastoral services to people. So that may be understandable, but it was a bit confusing. In other words, what I thought when I heard it was, why did the Pope even go there? Because it creates problems, for the people on the ground. So I think I see the latest statement that was made, which takes a clear stand against the issue, And I think that should do it for the Catholics.
Okay.
I'm a Methodist. We have
Yes.
taken our stand already, and we are not yielding.
Okay. Well, Dr. Fayose, we are boxing the two together, anti-gay bill and the Pope's communication. Are you as confused as the others, or now the matter is settled? And then what's your view on the fact that Parliament was unable to pass the anti-gay bill in spite of the assurance?
I am disappointed as well. I wish it would have been passed by now. But I think Parliament is going through all the necessary processes, dotting all the I's and crossing the T's. And that is a necessary evil that they have to go through so that we have the best of bills. The bill, as it was presented, has been changed drastically to a very large extent. A lot of things have been taken out, things have been added, some things have been redefined, and so on and so forth. And I think all those processes are in good taste. We need those things to have a very solid bill. We don't want the bill to be thrown off board by human rights experts that it flouts people's human rights, because that's not the intention of the bill. The bill is not intended to infringe on the rights of people. The bill is intended to promote, if you like, proper family values. So we must do everything not to give a bad name to a very good bill. And I think that is what is happening in Parliament. Even though there are some forces that may not want the bill to see the day of light, I believe that it will eventually see the day of light. But the more time they take on it, the better bill that we are going to have. So even though I'm disappointed, it still did not make it before the end of the year. I believe that it's going to make it in the ensuing year, and we are going to have a more quality and a better bill.
Okay. I'm curious about the Christian Council's position also on this communication from the Pope about blessing same-sex couples and not same-sex marriages.
Yeah, I think in my own understanding, I think what the Pope was trying to do is to emulate the example of our Lord Jesus Christ, who's told that adulterous woman that go and sin no more. In other words, Jesus blessed the adulterous woman, but did not bless the sin, did not bless the lifestyle. Go and sin no more. I think that was what the Pope was attempting to do. It did not come out initially well, but eventually it came out that way.
But did we need a letter from the Pope for that to happen, when indeed these people are already in church and they are being blessed already? But do we need to legislate that and say that people should actually bless these couples if we know that it's not for same-sex marriages, but it's just for the couples? Really, is that not leaving us confused?
It's a bit confusing, I must agree. But I think that is the position of most Christians, that we do not really hate them. We do not really hate people who practice same-sex lifestyles. But then we do not endorse that way of life.
Okay.
So we embrace them, we love them, we want them to come into our churches, our doors are open. And I believe all of that is sort of giving them our blessing, saying that we love you, but we don't think what you are doing is right. How can we help you come out of that? I think that is what Jesus did, and I think that is what most Christians should do. Most Christians should still love them. And I do have a couple of friends, people I know very closely, who are into this, and they are still my friends. But that does not mean that I endorse their way of life, per se. So that should be the approach. And I think even in the bill makes provision for that. The bill makes provision for reforming persons who have this kind of lifestyle. And there's a cost element to that, and I think that is one of the issues that had come up. And some churches had guaranteed that if it's an issue, they are going to help pay the cost of the reformation of such persons.
Well, Dr. Dijemfi, your take on this as well. You're also as disappointed as Professor Jedu and Dr. Fayose on the bill not being passed first?
Well, from the angle of the Peace Council, we do not have a position. because as we've already said, we are mediators, and we hope that if an issue comes up, we will be resolving it. So the council has no position. But the reality is that some members of the council belong to some of these bodies that have raised opposition. I am on the council on the basis of the Christian Council, and therefore, even though the council has no position, I will associate myself with the Christian Council. And the same thing will apply to the other Christian organizations that are there. The 3 Muslim organizations that are there have also raised their voices outside, even though the council has no position, as well as the traditional worshippers. So generally, the feeling is that we have a challenge on our hands, and I think that the passage of that bill probably will resolve one problem or the other. But when it comes to the Peace Council, we don't take a position on some of these matters. Okay,
but I was hoping Dr. Edujemfi as a person would tell me what his position on this matter will be. And then also the Pope's communication. Is it clear to you from where you stand?
Well, initially it was confusing, as my other panelists have said, but I think that there's been a little bit of clarity towards the weekend. And we hope that going forward, there will be a lot more clarity on this matter.
Okay.
But as I said, I am with the Christian Council. I'm a Baptist, and I belong to the Christian Council. So once the Christian Council takes a position, and I also serve on the executive committee. So once they take a position, I back that position.
I'll have to take a quick break, but not before we talk about this issue about the Domahene and the Asantehene. I don't know if it is something that the National Peace Council is looking into, and where we are with this and the potential instability or the concerns that it raises from what we've seen, at least on social media and in the media. As a Peace Council, are you concerned about this feud in court that we've been talking about?
Yes, we've already received a petition on this matter from quite a senior citizen. And we've spoken to the president of the House of Chiefs because we believe that it's a chieftaincy matter, and we've asked them to deal with it. They've given us the assurance that they will handle the issue. So we are standing by to hear from the National House of Chiefs as to what this whole issue is about. So the Peace Council will not provide intervention immediately because we think that it's an issue for the National House of Chiefs to resolve.
Do we have any timeline? Are they adding any sense of urgency in dealing with this particular issue, you'd say?
I think they are. We've heard the Minister for Chieftaincy Affairs, Religious and Chieftaincy Affairs, making some statements. So I think that it's come to their attention.
On that note, we'll take a quick break here on the probe. We are right back to get talking more. I see many of the questions that you're sending, then we'll be talking about it. But do stay with us. Let's take a quick break. We're right back. Welcome to the probe here on the Joy News channel, also on Joy 99.7 FM. And Dr. Cyril Gershon Kwao-Fayose, the General Secretary of the Christian Council, is my guest. I also have in the studio Professor Jedu, in the very Reverend Professor Jedu in the studio. Also via Zoom, Dr. Ernest Edujemfi, the board chair of the National Peace Council, also with us. And we're having a conversation on various issues that happened in 2023 and going forward into 2024. Now let's talk about galamsey. It was a big one. Still a big one. Existential threat to our environment is the key concern. Professor Jedu, some time ago, the Christian Council and some other pastors prayed. It appears prayer is not working.
Well, whether it's not working or not, that's not for me to say. But I think prayer does more than we think it does. One of the things that prayer does, is that, of course, it calls for God's intervention. But a prayer can also be a public relations issue. The fact that they went there to pray and everybody saw it around the world, knew that this is a country that wants to take this matter seriously. I am surprised that we are not as angry with what is going on in this country as we are with some of the issues we have raised. Because our very future, our destiny, depends on the environment. It surprises me that we don't get clear sermons systematically articulated on the theology of the environment. Because when you look at what is happening to our forests, our water bodies, and so on, it is frightening. And I think that just as we demonstrate against low wages, conditions of service, hardships, and so on, we should be even angrier at what is happening to the environment and rise up and make sure that we do something about it. I'm surprised. In the past, I've not heard it in recent times, that politicians are even able to tell galamseyers that when we come to power, we will make it better for you. I think we should take decisive action that this is not helping this country and it must stop.
I'm not sure that call was to illegal miners per se. That call, I'm sure, was to small-scale miners.
No, I'm talking about illegal
miners. Okay.
Where do you draw the line in the first place? You know, so my point is, it's not this party or that party. Whatever it is, as a country, we should be very, very angry at what is going on. And in Christianity, there's something, or let's say in theology, there's something called holy anger. So we need to be angry and make sure that we take decisive action against those who are destroying the environment.
Okay.
And everybody must be on board on that.
Dr. Fayose, I'm sure this is not an issue that requires backdoor diplomacy, does it? We prayed, and for many, it doesn't look like prayer is the only answer to this situation that we are faced with.
I agree with Prof. Asamoah-Gyedu that we need some righteous indignation here to counter this menace. Actually, that was what the Christian Council of Ghana felt when we took up the matter and we went to the galamsey sites. We did not go there purposely to pray, but because we are prayer people. We are people who pray anytime we do something. When we went there, we also prayed. I know sometimes the media also kind of worsens the situation when such a noble, deliberate effort to do something about the galamsey situation was bastardized by saying that we just went to pray, we just went to sing praises, and that will not solve the problem. That was not what we did, actually. The Christian Council of Ghana went to the prayer sites, went to the galamsey sites, but before then, we met with the Minister of Lands. We met with the Minerals Commission. We met with the presidency. We met with a number of stakeholders. We even had experts who were with us when we went on that sightseeing to see things for ourselves. We met with traditional leaders. So all that effort, and in fact, the engagement with the presidency took a number of hours. And certain very serious matters were discussed that I cannot disclose on a public this thing like this. So let us not trivialize the efforts by the council when we do certain things. But to just say that we just went to pray, that was not what we actually did, even though we believe in the power of prayer. And that is why we actually prayed. Anytime we visit a particular site, we still pray. That was not the purpose. The purpose, we went to the palaces of chiefs that are in galamsey endemic areas, had discussions with them. One of them was a retired police officer who was telling us that even as a police officer, he himself cannot even handle the situation. And the fact that some of the permits were granted to persons outside of his jurisdiction, and he'll be there, and then they'll come and tell him that, hey, I have a permit to mine in this area and to mine that area. He also expressed his consent. So we are looking at the whole picture. And at the end of that, we presented a petition to the presidency. And what we were asking for was a temporary, complete ban on small scale and mining, galamsey mining, because you can't really tell the difference between the two. But we could not carry that one through because of some explanations that were given to us at the presidency, certain things that were said. So that was why we kind of toned down a little bit on that position. But as a country, we must all come together and find a way out of this whole galamsey issue. It's really destroying our very lives. It's an existential problem that we have. But then there are other sides to the issue. there are a number of people in this country who actually depend on this for their livelihood. That is a factor that must also be taken very seriously. And we have to look at the whole picture and see how best to rework the system. Because galamsey can be
the threat to our environment, does it not outweigh the employment concerns that these persons will raise?
That is what we all have to sit around the table
okay.
and actually discuss. I can't say that off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Edujemfi, is it a fight that we are winning as a country? The issue about galamsey and the fight?
Well, it's a very difficult journey to tread on. Until we depoliticize this whole process, there is no way we are going to win this battle. Just before the last election, I was then serving as the president of the Ghana Baptist Convention, and as one of my visits to churches in the Mid-Ghana sector, between Dunkwao to Ayamfuri to Bogoso to Christia, I saw the devastation. And I saw, the way our water bodies had been turned, the lands, it was terrible. But as I made my inquiries, one of the problems that came up was that the security service personnel who were sent there to take care of these things were telling the community people at that time about Now, once you do that, you make the government unpopular. And I believe that is what has stalled this whole process. Because the enthusiasm with which they were trying to clamp down on these things had to pull back. And the results of the last election will confirm that to them. And so they have slowed down the whole process. And it's because of what is actually happening on the field. Now, like Professor Asamajebi said, there are certain things in this country that we should depoliticize.
Okay.
We've heard all kinds of things. One government wants to do this. As soon as you say this, somebody says, if I come to power, I'll legalize it. Somebody says, I want to do this, and say, if I come to power, I will give you this. That whole thing brings politics into different issues that we should have dealt with as a country. And we're unable to deal with them because I'm afraid to lose power. And therefore, if this is what this person is saying, then I will not even touch it at all. And that's why we are running in circles. Okay. So the political will may be there, but you're also afraid of the fact that your opponent is also using it against you and you are likely to lose votes. Do I go ahead and do it or do I stop? This is where we are as a country. And we need to deal with this whole issue, to depoliticize some of these issues. We've had it with education, we had it with Okada, we've had it with, all of these things are creating challenges for us as a country. And we need to come back and deal with these matters.
Well, going into election 2024, I was hoping we would have much more time, but we're running out of time on this. But the issue about religious tolerance, it's an issue that most of the time we play ostrich. But upon Dr. Bawumia's win as a flag bearer of the NPP, we've heard the talk really about Muslim, Christian, and the possibility of a Muslim being president of this country, maybe. Really, it raises the concern about how we need to be tolerant going into election 2020. The politics of religion definitely will come up, and it's something that we cannot hide. Prof, looking into 2024, what really should we be doing in terms of the issue about religious tolerance and the politics of religion?
That's a very sobering issue. I like the fact that my senior colleague, Dr. Edujemfi, continued to talk about depoliticizing this, depoliticizing that. I keep asking myself, what in this country haven't we politicized? So he is making a very important intervention in this discussion. We have politicized public life, the public service. So we are in a situation where even when people are working in an establishment, they can't even anticipate that they will rise to the top, because by the time they get there, a political party in office will put a politician above them. Yeah. So we have politicized public office. We have even politicized crime. We have lost our sense of shame. Somebody steals our money. And then when we take him to the court, political parties follow him to the court. Even mothers don't follow their children when they go and steal. But we have politicized crime. We have politicized religion and others, whether the environment, even ethnic belonging, violence has been politicized, education has been politicized, as was said.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it is written anywhere that it is only when a Christian leads a country that country will make progress. What we need is honest, God-fearing leadership. Because in the scriptures, God used Gentiles. Now, if somebody is qualified to be the vice president of a country, why do you say he's not qualified to be a president because of his religious affiliation?
Okay.
So the point is not whether he will come into office or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the point is, in our constitution, we are supposed to be a secular country.
Okay.
And everyone, Christian, Muslim, whoever, is entitled to engage in politics. And if the time comes and we elect somebody, we will hold them accountable, not on their religious record, but on the record of good governance.
Okay.
And I think that is what we should pay attention to.
Okay, I'll give 1 minute each to Dr. Edujemfi and Dr. Fayose. But really, there are two issues that I was hoping we could box together on this, but we're really out of time. The politics of religion. And going into 2024, 31st night is just around the corner, and most pastors will be prophesying.
Not
really,
most, some.
Some pastors will be prophesying. So really, Dr. Edujemfi, I'll start with you. Maybe you can box the two together quickly for me. The politics of religion, and then maybe your message to pastors as they go into 31st. Some pastors is there going into 31st, and the prophecies that we are going to be hearing.
Well, the first is the politics of religion. Immediately after the election of the vice president, we saw all the things that were happening. On some platforms, certain things were being written. The Peace Council had to, in consultation with the Christian Council, the Office of the Chief Imam, the Catholic Secretariat, had to provide an intervention immediately with a press release. And I think that it brought down the tension a little bit. But I wouldn't say that it's totally gone. But what I want to caution Ghanaians is that anybody who has done peace study understands that there are three key things that one should be cautious of when it comes to conflict: religion, tribe, culture. These three things, if you touch them, it can be devastating. And the way we have lived together as a people in this country, we must be cautious not to go into those three areas: culture, religion, and tribe. If we get there, we can't control what is going to happen. Okay. So I want to appeal to everybody in this country: be mindful of what you say. Like Professor Asamoah said, I mean, these two, let's take the current two leaders of the two big parties, whether Christian or Muslim. Can Christians in this country say that this is a representation of Christianity or this is a representation of Islam? No. Okay. They are ordinary people doing their own thing, and people should see them as ordinary people. What policies have they got? How are they going to provide jobs for the youth, which is a major issue confronting us? These are the questions we ought to be asking, and not whether you go to church or go to them.
Okay, Dr. Fayose, maybe I'll give you the final word on this. We're really out of time. And then your message to pastors for 31st night as they prophesy to the election year.
Yeah, I will go straight to the prophecy, the doom prophecy says that there's no place in Christianity really for that. I think it's a whole misunderstanding of the whole ministry of prophecy. Mm-hmm. And people are misusing it for their own illicit gains. Let me put it that way. So I want to encourage all of us to go preach the word and stop prophesying the death of people, or some people are going to win elections or otherwise. That doesn't help anyone. And I want to use this opportunity to also make an appeal to the presidency to sign the anti-witchcraft bill that was passed and sent to him. Because you see, like any other citizen of the country, pastors, if they use their mouths and their tongues to defame and vilify someone and accuse someone of witchcraft, it's a very serious offense and must be taken up on that.
Okay.
So my hope and prayer for everyone is that this is a season of love and giving and forgiving and peace and reconciliation. So let's go out there and preach those principles.
This is a show we must do again. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us here on the program. We're indeed grateful. And that's the Reverend Dr. Ernest Edujemfi. We had the chairman of the National Peace Council. We also have very Reverend Professor Johnson Kwabena Asamoah Jedu. He's the president, Trinity Theological Seminary, Ghana, and also the general secretary of the Christian Council of Ghana, Reverend Dr. Cyril Gershon Kwao-Fayose. Many thanks, gentlemen, and best of the season to all of you. And it will definitely be our final show for this year, but we'll do it again. Thank you so much. I'm MF Pau. Have a good evening. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com.